Hello friends, my name is Bevin Cohen. I'm the owner of Small House Farm and author of the book Saving Our Seeds, The Practice and Philosophy, and The Artisan Herbalist. When we focus on local herbs, that's how we grow as herbalists. Now, we could forage for our herbs. We could even buy starts from our local greenhouse, bring them home, tend to them, cultivate them, care for them. And these are all great ways to develop these relationships, to get to know these plants that much better. But when we incorporate seed saving into our practice, that's how we connect the cycle. That's how we go full circle with this relationship. We're with these plants in the moment of their passing. As the plants give their seeds to the next generation, we're there. And as we take these seeds and then plant them into the soil, we're at the beginning of the cycle of this plant, right? We understand this relationship of life and death.
The cycle begins, essentially, with the flower. So as seed savers, our journey must begin within the flower, understanding just how these seeds get made. Now you see in the diagram here, on the left is the stamen, made up of the anther and the filament. This is the pollen shedding portion of the flower, commonly referred to as the male flower parts. And on the right, we can see the female parts, the carpel, made of the stigma, style, pollen tube, ovary, and ovule. Now, this is the pollen receptive portion of the flower. And a seed is made when pollen comes from the stamen, makes its way from the stigma style through the pollen tube all the way down to the ovary, fertilizing this flower, thus instigating fruit set and therefore seed. Now what we see in this picture here is what's known as a perfect flower, a hermaphrodite if you will, right? Having the male and female parts on the one flower, thus pollinating itself, creating its own fruit and seeds. But a number of the plants that we may work with have separate staminate and pistillate flowers, separate pollen shedding male and pollen receptive female flowers. Now in these situations, the pollen must find its way from the staminate flower to the pistillate flower. And this can happen in a number of ways, be it wind moving the pollen or an insect picking the pollen up and moving it from one flower to the next. Now this intimate bond that we create with our herbs as we become a part of that life cycle, as we learn how these seeds are made, it's going to make us better herbalists. And we're going to be able to create more potent medicine for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities.
As we begin to harvest and collect our seeds, it's important that we understand when the seeds are mature, right? Now, each different species that we're going to collect seeds from is a little bit different, but we want to ensure that we're harvesting mature, viable seed, right? That's going to give us success as seed savers. Now, the clue here is going to be understanding the dispersal mechanism, right? Now, this is how Mother Nature disperses the seeds. Each plant's a little bit different in how she chooses to disperse her seeds, but we need to see that, understand that, because that's our clue to know that these seeds are ready to harvest.
Of course, the first step is making sure that our seeds are mature. Now, these dill seeds here are green and luscious. They haven't gotten that telltale brown, crispy appearance yet. So although these would be good in the kitchen, still delicious, they're not going to be viable seeds, and they're not going to grow us any herbs if we harvest them yet. We'll need to wait a little bit, and as you can see, they'll die down. The stems will turn brown, become dry and brittle. The seeds will become brown and crisp and will easily come off of the plant into our hands. That's the clue that we're looking for. See these marigolds here? I've got 3 stages of the flower's life in this one photo here. On the left, you can see the young flower bud still, and towards the top, the beautiful, gorgeous bloom, and then the dried up, brown, crispy flowers that have reached their maturity, and the seeds inside there are going to be ready for us to harvest. We can tell because it just takes a little bit of pressure, the threshing with our hands, to release those seeds, the ripe, viable, mature seeds ready to be harvested. Not only do we need to be able to identify when the plants are mature, when the seeds are ready to harvest, but we have to make sure that we can identify which plants we're harvesting from. In this photo here, you can see some morning glories that we had grown, and they are mature and ready to be harvested. The seeds are certainly ready, but the morning glory vines have twisted all around a number of other plants, and all of these plant seeds are mature at the same time. So I need to have this relationship with this plant. I need to know it well enough to be able to identify it in all stages of its life. Not only do we need to know the leaves and the flowers to be able to make a proper identification of a plant that we want to work with, but I also need to be able to identify this plant in the final stages of its life. I need to be able to make a proper identification when I harvest these seeds to make sure that I'm collecting seeds from the right plant, not only for success in my garden next year, but if I plan on sharing these seeds with my community in the future. Once we know that we're able to properly identify when our seeds are mature, and that we know for sure that we can identify these plants in every stage of their life cycle, then we need to study how these seeds are being dispersed, the different dispersal mechanisms that Mother Nature has for moving these seeds about once they're mature to new locations to grow. Now, many of our seeds are wind dispersed, right? It's the wind that blows the seeds around. Now, dandelions, thistle, and milkweed are some of the most popular examples of this dispersal mechanism. That fluff that the seeds produce to help catch the wind and move them along. But we can also think about seeds like maple and ash is actually designed in a way, the package that it comes in, to catch the wind and be moved about. Or we can even think of seeds like yarrow that are just so light that with the wind blows, it'll literally lift them right out of the dried flower and carry them to new places. We can also think about seeds that are dispersed by animals. Some seeds are encased in something edible, like a blackberry, sunflower, the acorn of the oak tree, a capsicum pepper, those sorts of things, where the animal will ingest the fruit and then carry the seed to the next location to be dispersed later. Or we can think about seeds like burdock or wild carrot that are designed in a specific way, again, the package that they come in, to catch onto the fur or the clothing of the animal that passes by to then be moved to new locations. Gravity, obviously, helps to disperse seeds. We can think of some obvious examples like apples and coconut. When these fruits become ripe, they become heavy, and the plant lets them go, and gravity pulls them to the ground, and they roll to their new location. But smaller herbs that we work with, salvia, mint, those sorts of things, their seeds are dispersed in the same way. When the plants mature, when the seeds are mature, they drop from the plant. The plant will kind of lean over and allow gravity to remove those seeds and disperse them into new locations. One of the most exciting ways the plants will disperse their seeds is forced dispersal. It's this mechanical function that literally launches the seeds out into new locations, right? Jewelweed, wood sorrel, geraniums, these are all very popular examples of forced dispersal, right? Impatient, a touch-me-not, just on contact with your finger onto these dried seed pods, and they'll burst open, launch the seeds all over the place. A number of seeds are actually water dispersed, right? The plants are designed to drop the seeds into water and have the flowing water carry the seeds off to a new location. Obviously, coconut, cotton, willow, those are great examples of that. St. John's wort's an interesting one too. St. John's wort will grow quite often near a creek, or a stream, a moving body of water, and drop the seeds into the water to be carried off into a new location. An interesting thing about this is the St. John's wort seeds, the germination rate of the seed actually increases the longer these seeds are submersed in water.
So let's take a walk around, look at some of the plants that we see here, and see what we can discover as we go. This beautiful milkweed here is the perfect example of Mother Nature showing us exactly when the seeds are ready. If we look at one of these green pods here, the seeds inside are still immature, right? But as the plant matures, the seed pod will crack open to release the seeds. Now this is the dispersal mechanism for the milkweed. These are wind dispersed seeds. As the pod opens up, the seeds are released, they're caught in the wind, they're dispersed.
Now here's another great example of a wind dispersed seed. This is a variety of aster. And if you can see these seeds, each individual seed has its own little tuft, a little bit of fluff. They'll catch onto that wind and carry the seed off to a new home. Now, these plants here are giving us all the clues that we need to realize that these seeds are ready. You can see that the seed heads have dried down. They're brown, gray, crispy to the touch. The leaves have all died back on these plants. These seeds are ripe and ready to be harvested. So all I really need to do here is remove the seed heads by hand. Use a little bit of pressure. We're going to kind of crush the flower heads, roll it around between our fingers to release the seeds. Now look at that. Look at all the seeds that come out of here. Very little effort at all. Dozens of seeds. Now here's our good friend yarrow, the Achilleum millefolium. And now obviously this specimen here is far too young. The flowers haven't even opened. These are still green flower buds. So we're not going to get any seeds from this particular plant. But if we look around a little bit further, we'll find some nice dried flower heads. Now these are obviously mature and ready to go. You can tell again, the telltale signs, even if the leaves have died back on the plant, the flower head is brown, crispy to the touch, and I can simply flip it over and tap it out, and all these seeds can be gathered. Oh, and here's some dock. Now this is a handy herb. The seeds are giving us all the clues that we need for sure. Look, they're brown, they're crispy, dry to the touch, easily removed from the plant. And each one of these little fruits that comes off of here has a number of seeds on it. So very little effort at all on our part, and we can get lots of seeds to take back home to our gardens.
Harvesting and processing our seeds is a fairly straightforward task. The technique that we're going to use is commonly known as threshing and winnowing. Now, threshing our seeds essentially is just using force. The force is going to vary depending on the plant that we're working with or the scale of our operation. But essentially what we're doing here is, again, using force to remove the seed from the fruit, from the shell, from the plant material, separating that seed out. Now, it could be as simple as just using our hands, or we could be using a piece of equipment like a flail, a bat, stick, whatever it is, just essentially agitating the plant material to release its seeds, right? That's the technique of threshing. Winnowing is how we clean the seed, right? This is removing the chaff from the seed. All the bits of debris, maybe some dried leaves, the shells that were on the plants, parts of the dried fruits, whatever it may be. Getting all that out of our way so we have nothing but clean seed at the end of our process. Winnowing. Now, winnowing can be done by using the wind, air, to blow the seed away. We could use a box fan in some situations to simulate the wind.
This is probably one of the easiest way to clean our seeds, especially if we're dealing with a large quantity of seeds that need to be cleaned. Now we just pour the seeds, the chaff and everything, in front of the box fan. The fan blows the debris away, and the seed then lands to be collected in a container below.
Or even as simple as just using our breath. Especially when we're dealing with smaller seeds with a very light shell, light fluff, whatever it may be, that could be easily just blown away very gently. And when we're dealing with small seeds, this is one of the easiest techniques to get them cleaned up. I'll demonstrate here with some morning glory seeds. Now, as you can see here in our bowl of morning glory seeds, we've got a lot of the husk, the shell that was wrapped around the seed, and it's all nice and dry. It's very light and papery at this point. And then you can see the hard black seeds. Now, these seeds are significantly heavier than the shell, so just by using our breath, we could easily clean these seeds up. Right? Now we'll get ourselves a shallow bowl, such as this one. It's going to make it a lot easier to get the chaff out of our way than if we were using a deep bowl. And just with a gentle breath, you can see the shells are blown away and the seeds are left behind. There. Now look how many seeds we have. Very little chaff now at this point. Alternatively, we could use screens, a series of screens to clean the chaff from our seeds. Either utilizing a screen whose hole is large enough for the seed to fall through, but so small that the debris is left behind on top of the screen, or vice versa, where the dust and dirt will fall through and the seed is left on top. So an alternative to using wind to clean our seeds, we could simply use these screens.
We'll choose a screen that has a proper size hole where the seed can fall through and the pods are left above. But you can see in this example, there's still some chaff left behind after we're done cleaning it. So we can run it through the screen again, or we can winnow these seeds to get them clean. Smaller seeds, we just simply choose a screen with a smaller hole. You can see that they fall through and the seed pods are left behind. Now let's go ahead and harvest and clean some catnip seed just so you can see the process from the beginning to the end. Now the first step is going to be identifying our mature flowers, right? Now they look to be visually dry and ready to be harvested, but let's go ahead and crinkle some between our fingers. Oh, look at that. They easily release some seeds, so we know that they're ready to go. Mother Nature always gives us these signs to let us know when her seeds are ready to be harvested. Once we know that the catnip's ready to go, we're just going to go through and we're going to cut the flower heads off and collect them into a bucket. Now as we go through, we may find a few that aren't all the way mature yet, still green buds, maybe even have flowers on them. We're going to leave those behind. We only want to collect the driest and most mature flower buds here. There's quite a bit to choose from, so I'm just picking the biggest ones just to make the job easier. And in no time at all, we're going to have a nice collection of seeds to clean. So now we'll thresh them. Right, we'll just do this by hand. We're just going to rub these flower heads between our hands, break them apart, bust them open. We're just trying to get these dried flowers to release their seeds. So let's move up to the table for a little bit easier working. Make sure they're nice and threshed, everything's busted out. And then we're just going to kind of take some of this fluff off the top and get it out of the way. All right, most of the seeds now are going to be all at the bottom. And getting this out of the way will just make it a little bit easier to clean. Now we're going to go ahead and get a screen. We're going to check out our different size gauges here on our screen. So we're going to pick one that's going to be the right size for us, right there. Now with small holes just for these tiny, tiny seeds to fall through, but keeping the majority of that chaff up and out of our way. Just simply pour our seeds, flower buds and things, all the little bit of debris right through the screen. Then we're going to kind of stir it up, move it around a little bit. There's lots of seeds in here, so we're going to kind of just stir it, help move them to the bottom. They'll fall through the holes and collect into the bucket here. A little bit of debris is going to get through, with our seeds, but that's okay. We can clean that up. Look at all these seeds already. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you can see some dust, little flower buds in there, so we're going to clean them up. Now we're going to get a more shallow bowl. This is the key here, something a little bit more shallow than the bucket that we're working with. And we're going to pour the seeds and the chaff, what's left over here, into this bowl. And we're just going to use our breath. Gently blow on the seeds. Keep stirring them, moving them around, bringing that chaff to the top. Just gently blow on that. And that lighter chaff, the chaff being lighter than the seed, just easily be blown away until it's nice and clean. And in no time at all, thousands of beautiful catnip seeds easily collected.
A great majority of the herbs that we're going to be harvesting our seeds from are very similar in structure to how they produce their seeds and how our seeds are going to be harvested. And for these particular herbs, I will use what is known as the paper bag technique. This is an easy way to harvest seeds from so many of the herbs that we work with. And to do this, all we need is a paper bag. So we'll find our herb. In this case, we're going to be working with this St. John's wort down here, right? So follow along. All right, now here's our St. John's wort that we're going to be harvesting some seeds from. Interesting side note, one St. John's wort plant will produce somewhere around 15,000 seeds. So it's not going to take a lot of work on our part to harvest enough seeds for ourselves and for the gardens of all of our herb friends, really. And you'll see that a majority of these flowers have brown. They've started to die back, and we know that they have lots of good seed inside. If we needed to, we could bust one off, crinkle it up, dump it over our fingers, and we'll see. Lots of tiny, minuscule seeds here. Very small seeds, very difficult to work with by hand. So what we're going to do here is we're going to harvest the entire plant. Once a majority of the flowers have turned brown like this, the rest of them are going to follow right along, even once the plant's been cut. At that point, the plant's going to put all of its energy into maturing these seeds, finishing that life cycle process. So we can cut this plant right off. Real easy. Put it upside down. into our paper bag. All right. Now at this point, I recommend labeling your paper bag. Labeling is key to successful seed saving. We want to label things every step of the way. So I'll simply write the name of the plant onto my bag, and in this case, I'm even going to write the year of the harvest. I can leave these plants right here in this bag all the way until next season when I'm ready to plant them. The plant will continue to die down, the seeds will dry, fall to the bottom of the bag, right? I can tie this up with a rubber band, put it in a cool, dark place to sit, and it's going to be ready to go next season. I can just take the plant out. All the seeds will be at the bottom of the bag. If I shake it up right now, you can already hear the seeds dropping out. All right, so this would be a good way to thresh if we wanted. Let's give it a try. I'll take the plants out. Let's just see what we got. Pour this out into my hand. Move some of that debris out of the way. And look at that. Just with a simple shake. Dozens of seeds. Now, let's go ahead and harvest some seeds from our friend mullein. Now, I'm a big fan of mullein. Now mullein is a type of plant that's known as a biennial. And what this means is that it takes 2 seasons in order for the plant to finish its cycle to produce flowers, fruits, and then seeds. In the first year, it simply grows a rosette of leaves, the soft, velvety leaves that we're familiar with. A rosette on the ground, sometimes quite large in size even for its first year. And then in the second year, after being vernalized over winter, it will put out its flower stalk. These tall, sometimes much taller, flower stalks with the familiar small yellow flowers that you'll see along roadsides and in fields and such. Now, after the plant's died back like this, right, it is letting us know that her seeds are ready for us to harvest. Now, this would be a great plant to use the paper bag technique. I could cut the stalk, flip it upside down in a paper bag, and it'll release all of its seeds for me. But just for fun, let's go ahead and flip the scale upside down into a little bucket and see how many seeds we get. Now, it just simply takes a little bit of agitation, right? Our threshing technique, just banging the plant up against the side of the bucket to release the seeds. Very simple. And look at this. Hundreds, no, thousands of seeds. That's the exponential nature of seeds. From one plant, thousands of new plants. Just amazing.
Now, once we've done the work of properly identifying our herbs, waiting for them to reach maturity, and gathering their seeds, and then processing them through the techniques of threshing and winnowing, we need to turn our focus to proper labeling and storage of our seeds. When we're storing our seeds, the 3 key words that we need to think of are cool, dark, and dry. This is the environment that seeds need for storage. We can use different kinds of packaging. These brown paper coin envelopes work really well, small Ziploc bags. For larger amounts of seeds, we can certainly use mason jars. They come in all different sizes. It's a nice airtight container. You could even consider maybe throwing a silica packet in there with them to help wick away any additional moisture that's in with our seeds. Keeping our seeds dry is essential to ensure their survival and storage. We also want to make sure that all of these seeds are properly labeled, right? As good seed savers, we're labeling our plants from the beginning to the end of the process. We're including the varietal, the name of the variety. We're including the Latin binomial, the scientific name of the species. We're going to include the year of the harvest. If these are seeds that need scarification or stratification, that need different processes in order to break their dormancy to germinate the seeds, mention that on the label. Not only for ourselves in future years, but in case we share any of these seeds with our community, we want them to have all the information they need to succeed when they grow these herbs. Now, keeping our herb seeds cool and dark is important. Now, we can accomplish this by just simply keeping them in a box or a bag, in a closet, some dark out of the way place away from the sunlight. We can keep our seeds in the refrigerator to keep them cool. We can even store them in the freezer for long-term storage. If we're going to keep our seeds in the freezer, though, we want to make sure that they're in an airtight container and that when we remove the seeds from the freezer, we allow them to come back up to room temperature before we open that package to avoid any condensation that might occur. So remember, the key words here are cool, dark, and dry. That'll lead you to success in proper seed storage.
Now that we've covered the basics of seed saving and you have all the tools and knowledge that you need to be a successful herbal seed saver, I want to touch briefly on some techniques that are going to help us succeed starting our seeds in the spring. A number of our culinary herbs, herbs that we may cultivate in our gardens, and in particular, actually, a lot of our wild plants that we work with need some extra coaxing in the spring to get those seeds to germinate. A number of these seeds require a process known as stratification. So essentially, this process is exposing the seeds to a prolonged period of cold temperatures, right? Cold stratification is triggering these seeds to break their dormancy. Now, this is going to vary a little bit, obviously, from species to species, but the overall gist is the same, right? It's just this period of cold temperatures to help break this dormancy. Now, this can be achieved in a number of different ways, right? If we pack our seeds into a moist medium, say some potting soil or some sawdust, even some peat moss, coconut coir, whatever that you have that you garden with, putting our seeds inside of that, keeping it moist, putting it in a little Ziploc bag, putting it in the refrigerator, right? We could pack it away in the refrigerator or the freezer. Again, that's going to depend upon the species, but about 4 to 6 weeks on average at these cold temperatures is all that it's going to take. If you don't really want to put a bag of seeds in your fridge, though, have no fear. A lot of these plants actually can be planted, the seeds can be planted out before winter even hits. Plant them in the late fall, early winter, right out into the soil, right? And this is going to expose these seeds to the moisture and those cold temperatures that they need to break that dormancy and get them growing, right? Now, let's just think about this. Once again, this is an opportunity that we can use Mother Nature as our guide, right? She's got it all figured out. We just need to listen to her a little bit. And that is how a number of these native plants, these wild herbs that we're foraging, that's exactly how they propagate themselves. They drop their seeds in the fall, right now, this time period that we're out here harvesting seeds. They're dropping their seeds in preparation of winter to come, right? She's already stratifying her seeds. So if we can kind of look to her as our guide, we can see what kind of plants need this treatment as well.
Herbs like echinacea, marshmallow, oregano, lemon balm, sage, stinging nettles, St. John's wort, lavender, all of these herbs benefit from the process of stratification.
Now, another technique that we're going to want to talk about is known as scarification. Now, a little bit different than stratification, whereas stratification is a temperature-based technique. With scarification, essentially what we're trying to do is crack the seed coat a little bit, wreck that seed coat to make it a little bit easier for that baby plant to bust free. With large seeds, they have a hard, thick coating on them. We can use maybe some nail clippers or a file or something just to kind of wear that away a little bit. Just to make it, like I said, a little bit easier for this baby plant to bust its way free. In nature, we can see this, whereas acorns is a good example, and a number of other large, hard-shelled seeds, they'll sit around throughout the winter. They'll be exposed to moisture, the elements, which will kind of weaken that seed coat, break that down a little bit, and give that plant, that baby plant, the edge it needs to get itself going. All right, now this is going to vary, of course, from species to species. So we're going to want to do our species-specific research when we get ready to plant our seeds. But here's a brief list of some plants that need scarification in order to get started.
Marshmallow, hibiscus, moonflower, morning glory, nasturtium. The seeds of all of these herbs benefit from the process of scarification.
Not every herb that we work with can be easily or successfully propagated by seed. And this could be for a number of reasons. Sometimes plants easily hybridize themselves, and then these seeds won't come true to type. Sometimes the plants that we're working with produce sterile seeds that won't grow anyways. Sometimes these herbs are so slow growing and difficult to get started that it's easier to start them another way, through root cuttings or divisions. So let's talk about a few other techniques that we can use to propagate our herbs.
This beautiful lemon geranium plant has just been a joy all year long, but it doesn't look like it's going to flower, so I'm not going to be able to gather any seeds from it. So the easiest way to propagate this plant is through cuttings. We're going to take cuttings from the plants and then root them to create new plants. So the first thing that we're going to want to do here is identify some new green growth, right? And the first technique that we could use is by cutting off a leaf right at the base where the stem meets the plant. Snip that right off there. Then we could place this in some water to try to get it to root. But I find I have much greater success propagating cuttings this way if I cut the stem, right? So again, we want nice green new growth, not woody stem. This fresh green growth is more quickly going to set roots for us. And we're going to find the leaf node and snip along that. Just like if we were harvesting our herbs, we like to cut at the leaf node. It's the same technique that we'll use when we propagate our herbs. I'm going to peel off some of these leaves, get them out of the way, expose a little bit more of that stem, and then we're going to go ahead and place this in water. Right now, some folks like to propagate their herbs by placing the cut stem into soil, directly into soil, but I do like to put it in water as well. The key here is we just want to make sure that we keep that water fresh. Change it out every few days. And within a couple of weeks' time, we'll be able to see new roots growing right from the base of that stem. At that point, we're going to want to take our plant and put it into some soil. This beautiful plant here is an African blue basil, and it has just been such a joy in the kitchen, as well as just a beauty to see every time I pull into the driveway. But unfortunately, this herb is a hybridized varietal, and the seeds are sterile. They don't come true to type. So I'm not going to be able to save seeds from this plant to grow again next year. So I'm going to have to propagate it through cuttings. This poor plant got caught by a frost before I was able to really do some work on propagating it. So we're going to have to look to see if we can find some fresh green growth that I can still collect in order to keep this plant around to enjoy during the winter times. So I'm going to want to look for the fresh green growth, not this woody stem that you're looking at here, but look at this one shoot of wonderful green growth. So we're going to identify our leaf nodes because that's where we're going to want to cut. Harvesting from this part of the plant encourages it to set its roots a little bit quicker. Then we'll go ahead and put our cutting into the water. And with any luck, we'll have lots of African blue basil to enjoy inside the home this winter and out in our gardens again come next spring. Now, this is a propagation technique that we can utilize with so many of our herbs. The keys here, remember, are just to look for that fresh green growth. That's what we want to harvest. And we want to cut right along the leaf nodes. Then we're going to take our plant material and we're going to place it in water that we change regularly as we wait for the roots to grow. Or we can put it right into some soil, just making sure that we keep it well watered until that plant is established. Another simple way to propagate our herbs is through root division. Now, with the herbs that we work with that grow in clumps, these clumps can easily just be divided using a spade into smaller pieces and replanted. Very quick and simple way to propagate a number of herbs. For herbs such as this horehound that spread through underground rhizomes, runners, essentially they're establishing new plants in different locations that come off these runners. We just have to identify where these small plants are at, then dig them up and repot them. Once we get them potted up into some soil, then we just want to water them in real well and keep these plants moist until they become established.
Now, we weren't obviously able to cover the specifics on every herb that you're going to be working with, but we did cover the techniques that you need to succeed with whatever these herbs may be, right? We know how to identify plants, right? The importance of identifying our plants, not only when they're flowering, but at the end of their life cycle as well. We know how to identify the mature plant and how to harvest, collect, and clean the seeds. These techniques that we covered in this video are the techniques that you're going to use regardless of the herbs that you work with, right? So take this as the first steps of your journey. These are the stepping stones from where your work will take off. Okay, so here's your homework. Take a walk through your neighborhood, to local parks, through the woods, wherever you live, take a nature hike. And as you walk, take the time to be observant of the world around you. Look at the plants that grow in your microclimate, and you'll find seeds are everywhere. Pick a few plants, observe their life cycle, harvest some of their seeds, even if you don't plan on growing them, just to have the experience of watching how this plant grows from a seed to a seed. Gather a few of them up, take some time to get to know them, right? Seed saving's fun. Seeds are abundant. Seeds are beautiful. Seeds are exciting. Seeds are the cornerstone of our entire existence. Without seeds, we don't exist. So just take a stroll and take some time. Turn down your mind and listen to Mother Nature. Let her guide you on this journey as a seed saver. And you'll be so thankful that you did. Practicing the traditional art of seed saving enhances our experience as herbalists. Not only is it economically advantageous to propagate our own plants, kind of cutting the bottom line a little bit, reducing our costs for the herbal products that we're making commercially, but it connects us again to that life cycle of the plant, right? As we develop these relationships with our herbal allies, our partners in the world of herbalism, we create this bond. We create more potent medicine. The medicine that we create for ourselves, for our family, and to share with our communities becomes that much better when we have a relationship with the plants that we work with. We become in tune with the cycles of life and death. We become a part of that cycle. That's not just good as an herbalist, but that's just good for people. To be connected to the natural cycles of the world around us, that's powerful stuff. And we have this opportunity to share our knowledge and experiences as herbalists and with our plants, with everyone in our community. A number of us may offer classes to teach about what we do as herbalists. This just enhances our portfolio in a way, right? This is yet another thing, another bit of knowledge that we can share. The seeds that we plant in our gardens are like the seeds that we plant in our community. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to learn about herbs. Be herbalists. Your community needs you. If you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into the world of seed saving, you should check out my book, Saving Our Seeds, The Practice and Philosophy. Not only does this book walk you through numerous crops and how to harvest and process the seeds, but we also discuss the philosophy and the thought process behind seed saving, why it truly matters, and why this is an ancient art that needs to be revived for modern times. I recently partnered with New Society Publishers to put together the book, The Artisan Herbalist. Now this book is going to cover herbalism from the park, the field, and the forest, crafting teas and tinctures right out of your own neighborhood. When you visit smallhousefarm.com, you can check out our full line of herbal products, salves, tinctures, lotions, oils, all made with herbs that we grow or gather right here from the wild.